is my Father's world, and to my listening ears all nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres. This is my Father's world. I rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas, whose hand the wonders wrought. This is my Father's world. The birds their carols raise, the morning light, the lily white, bear their Maker's praise. This is my Father's world. He shines in all that's fair. In the rustling grass I hear him pass. He speaks to me everywhere. This is my Father's world. Oh, let me ne'er forget that though the wrong seems oft so strong, God is a ruler yet. This is my Father's world. The battle is not done. Jesus who died shall be satisfied, and earth and heaven be one.
I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. But sometimes I wonder what He can do through me. No grace.
My dad teaches at Chapel Hill. He does music, directs music and teaches choir. He does choir at the church, and he tells us jokes. He puts us stories. He puts us to bed. He sings us songs. He plays with us. And I made him a very special Father's gift for Father's Day, and I hope he likes it, because he's the best dad in the whole wide world, and I love him.
Raised in His power, the weak become strong. His strength is perfect. His strength is perfect.
Father's Day to my dad. He's the best dad.
We can only know the power that He holds.
What is your name? And what do you call your dad?
Dad.
And what makes your dad great?
He's big and strong, and I love him.
In us begins when ours comes to an end. He hears our humble cry and
Father's Day to my dad, Anna Risa, and Heaven Father St. Tim, Papa Billy in heaven.
is perfect when our strength is gone.
John 15, verses 9 through 17. As the Father has loved me, I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from the Father. You did not choose me, I chose you. And I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I'm giving you these commandments so that you may love one another. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Well, good morning, everyone. Continuing on now is song titles that should be sermon titles from the 70s, Joy to the World by Three Dog Night. So we might ask, what does the world know about joy? And I found excerpts from old employee evaluations that are supposedly real, but they're really revealing. The first one says, since my last report, this employee has reached rock bottom and started to dig. Next one says he sets low personal standards and then constantly fails to achieve them. Then he brings a lot of joy as soon as he leaves a room. When his IQ reaches 100, he should sell. He says he has a photographic memory, but I think the lens cap is still on. And if you gave him a penny for his thoughts, you should get change. And then last but not least, it takes him 2 hours to watch 60 Minutes. Very sarcastic. The world's that way sometimes. But what about the church? Are we full of joy? Or are we more like the Christopher Marley character who says about Presbyterians, could be any of us, it don't prevent them from committing all the sins there is, but it keeps them from getting any fun out of it. More true than we might think. Joy to the World was written by Hoyt Axton, the country singer, very well known from Oklahoma. He pitched the song to the group while he opened for them on tour. Three Dog Night also had a song called Never Been to Spain, if you remember that one. That was also written by Hoyt Axton. And a little tidbit for trivia, Hoyt Axton's mom, Mae Axton, helped write the song Heartbreak Hotel for Elvis. So when Joy to the World topped the charts, the Axtons were the only mother-son team to be credited with writing a #1 song. Over the years, a lot of preachers have decided to make the bullfrog named Jeremiah a link to the prophet. And I just want to say, throw this in, we're not talking about that. It's not a link to Jeremiah the prophet. There was an interview with Hoyt Axton, and he explained these words in that interview. And what he said was, while that other stuff makes a good story, he said he just put those words in there to hold a place, and he meant to go back and fix them later. They were just nonsense words that he plugged in there, but the band recorded the song before he could change them. So mass shootings, COVID, tension, division, hate, discrimination, poverty, apathy, ignorance, injustice, anxiety, sorrow, and more. How can Jesus say, have joy in such times? How can he say, I came so that you'll have abundant joy when our world is so messed up? Where is the joy in a place like that? And how can Jesus say, ask and you'll receive so that your joy may be made complete? Merriam-Webster defines joy the way most of us do, the emotion evoked by well-being, success, or good fortune, or the prospect of possessing what we desire. Religion tends to equate joy to happiness. It's based on our circumstances. The English word happiness comes from the Old Norse word hap, H-A-P-P. We get our word happen from that word. So we could say happiness is based on what happens to us. If something good is happening, we are happy. But ancient Hebrew has two words for joy. The first word is simcha, and it's more associated with what we might expect. It's emotional, like having a great time at a festival. It's used 88 times in the Old Testament. But the second word is chedva, only used 2 times in the Old Testament. Nehemiah 8:10 is one of those, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. And to see the picture here, we need to look at the ancient Hebrew picture symbols that make it up. So chedva is a noun that comes from the verb hada. And the consonants in that word that make up this word is chet, dalet, and hey. Okay? The chet is shown as a picture of a wall or a fence. The dalet is shown as a door through something. And the dalet's interesting because in ancient Hebrew culture, to pass through a doorway was an act of coming into the covenant with the leader of that home. So not only does it represent a way in, but also a way into covenant with someone. And then the hey was originally a pictograph showing a man with arms raised up. It means behold. It shows a person looking at a great sight. So putting these words together in Hebrew, the picture they present is behold a door in the fence. And now we can see what the joy of Yahweh is. It's the gladness of providing a door in the fence to enter into covenant with God. It's a path to be in God's presence. And God has given us this door through Christ. We are not shut out because he's provided a way in. So this is what Nehemiah is talking about when he talks about the joy of the world. Yahweh, God, is able to have fellowship with us, and likewise us with God. Now, if this isn't cool enough for you, then let's look at the Greek meaning for the same word. And the New Testament word for joy is, again, based on that word kara, which means extend favor, lean towards, or be favorably disposed. It's the awareness of God's grace or favor or joy, grace recognized. So religion causes people to question their worth. It seeks to establish the idea that we have to strive for good things and that these good things are rare, short-lived little glimpses of blessing that won't last long. Religion wants us to believe that we should do good because it's how we earn good things. And it should strike all of us as extremely ironic that Jesus, on the day he will go before the chief priests and Pharisees, be put on trial, and then be eliminated by the Romans as a threat, would want to teach us about joy that day. He says, I'm saying this, not so you should be sad, grim, angry, vengeful, determined, but so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. There's something here that we need to know and see. One professor I read this week wrote, it's no wonder that the devil, in C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters, complains that pleasure is God's invention and joy is its product. Laughter, the devil says there, is disgusting, a direct insult to the realism, dignity, and austerity of hell. John Claypool once told a story on 30 Good Minutes program. He said there's an old rabbinic parable about a farmer that has 2 sons. As soon as they were old enough to walk, he took them to the fields and taught them everything that he knew about growing crops and raising animals. When he got too old to work, the 2 boys took over the chores of the farm, and when the father died, they had found their working together so meaningful that they decided to keep their partnership. So each brother contributed what he could, and during every harvest season, they would divide equally what they had corporately produced. Well, over the years, the elder brother never married, stayed an old bachelor. The younger brother did marry and had 8 wonderful children. Some years later, when they were having a wonderful harvest, the old bachelor brother thought to himself, you know, my brother has 10 mouths to feed. I have one. He really needs more of this harvest than I do. But I know he's much too fair to renegotiate. I know what I'll do. In the dead of night, when he's already asleep, I'll take some of what I have in my barn and slip it over into his barn to help him feed his children. Well, at the very same time, the younger brother was thinking to himself, God has given me these wonderful children. My brother hasn't been so fortunate. He really needs more of this harvest for his old age than I do. But I know him. He's much too fair. He'll never renegotiate. I know what I'll do. In the dead of night, when he's asleep, I'll take some of what I have in my barn and slip over and put it into his barn. And so one night, when the moon was full, you probably have already guessed, those two brothers came face to face, each on a mission of generosity. And the old rabbi telling the tale said that there wasn't a cloud in the sky, and then a little rain began to fall, and said, you know what that was? God weeping for joy because two of his children had gotten the point. Two of his children had come to realize that generosity is the deepest characteristic of the holy, and because we are made in God's image. Our being generous is a secret to our joy. Life is not fair, thank God, because life with God is rooted in grace. I saw a story about a woman named Cece who was working as a restaurant waitress in Indianapolis, and she was being treated poorly by rude customers. And this is a quote from her. She said, I was having a hard time at another table, but I just kept smiling and going on because that's what you have to do. Well, Cece picked up a credit card payment from another customer whose order had cost $5.97. And she found that that customer had added a tip of $446. And she ran out of the restaurant to fix it with the customer, and the customer just smiled and said, no, that's me. I meant it. That's for you. And Cece said, I didn't think I was worth $400, but she thought it was. Sarah Clark was a single mom, pregnant, with a husband or a fiance who was injured and couldn't work. And her regular customers knew a little bit about her story. And one of the customers, luckily for her, knew something about great joy and something about God's grace. On a busy night at the restaurant, Sarah gave this customer her ticket, and that total for the whole meal was $61. Well, the customer filled out the tip line with a note, and it said, this is God's money. He gave it to us so we could give it to you. God bless you. The tip, $900. Most Christians I know are looking for happiness, not joy. And I have certainly made this mistake. But there's always deep joy when I'm able to help someone see a door in the fence. A door through their misery, a door through their pain, a door through their loneliness, a door through their fear or sickness or doubt or failures or their grief. And the most astonishing thing is that if we are showing people a door through the fence, there are going to be more people who will someday show us a door through the fence. I pray that we can be that church. Thanks be to God for his amazing grace. Amen.